We should be live by now. Hello and
We're
welcome,
here.
SuccessGrid Nation, to this new episode of the SuccessGrid podcast live with your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, I have with me Ryan Knoll. He's a former marketing consultant for Fortune 500 companies. Ryan left his corporate gig to start a home cleaning business, Tidy Casa, which now does over 1.5 million a year. Ryan, welcome to the SuccessGrid podcast.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having
Awesome
me.
to have you. Awesome to have you here. So I want first start by telling people and the Success Grid Nation things that they might not know about you that you don't usually tell people about.
Probably the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is that I'm a type 1 diabetic, which is a really kind of hard thing to live with. And I also do business coaching. And kind of part of the coaching process when you're looking to help other people grow is you really got to kind of look inside yourself and kind of figure out why you tick. And I found out through that process that my real big why for why I wanted to grow and be an entrepreneur and have a business was because of the lack of autonomy I had when I was young with my disease, my type 1 diabetes. So that's probably the one thing that I really don't talk about too often. It's one thing for a long time, I was really ashamed to talk about. I just didn't want anybody to know I was a diabetic. Kind of felt like a weakness. But the older I've gotten and the more, therapy sessions I've gone to and the more coaching I've done, it really kind of became a superpower. So
Yeah,
that's probably my biggest
yeah,
thing there.
yeah. It's not a weakness to tell people sometimes that we are not feeling well or good or we are not good at something. It's good
Yeah,
to find people
we're
that
human, right?
will help you out. Yeah, hope you always feel good. So you built
Thank
a
you.
home cleaning business that's doing
Yes.
1.5 million a year.
Yes, sir.
Is there something unique? Because basically you did not invent the wheel. Home cleaning is has been here for like maybe millions of years. So
Yeah.
what's different in your business, in your company? What did you differently to succeed?
Well, and that's a really great question. Because I think one of the big things that I realized when I started my business, and I think as in people that aren't entrepreneurs trying to become entrepreneurs, there's this tendency to want to reinvent the wheel and to do something completely new. And I had tried that. I had software businesses I started. I was trying to do digital marketing things like real sexy companies. I had a video production company when I was like 19. Tried just about everything. And then at some point, one of my friends just said, "Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just do a normal, stupid, not sexy business that we know exists. You get the advantages of this second mover advantage, which is just this huge thing, and all you have to do is do it a little bit better." So for me, we focused on letting customers book appointments online. We focused on providing great customer service. Like if somebody doesn't have a good time, they want a refund, we give it to them. We don't, if something breaks, we replace it right away. You know, so just really focusing on making sure our sales and customer service is dialed in, our marketing's dialed in, and that things are easy and convenient for customers. Other than that, we're offering the same service that, like you said, has been offered for millions of years. Nothing's new or
So,
unusual outside of,
yeah,
you know.
but why cleaning? Why did this kind of things happen to you? Because usually, I don't know, maybe people like to clean their houses themselves. So why did that happen? Why did you think of this idea instead of maybe more
Sure.
appealing ideas like cleaning houses? Some people, yeah, you are founded a business, and there are people who do staff cleaning basically, but
Sure.
some people think of this idea of cleaning things as, I don't know. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. So for a lot of our customers, and I was in this demographic too, they're just busy. When you're focused on growing and being successful, there's this tendency to work 9 to 5 is like a joke, right? It's really like a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Type of life, and when you do that, your house ends up getting in disarray. and it just gets really hard to manage. So what we found is the biggest thing that people are looking for, and I was one of these people before I started the company. I worked a ton. I had side hustles on top of my 40-hour a work week job. And I just never had time to clean. So when I wanted to go find somebody to help me clean, back before I started, this was maybe 8 years ago, you had to talk to friends, ask for referrals. Like, there just wasn't a, call this company, they're going to come and clean and do a good job. And then even when the few companies that were out there, like these kind of bigger franchises, like Mary Maids or whoever, who tended to not be as well run because they're franchises. They're not, independent business owners. I mean, they're independent, but they just tend to not have the same thing. And then you would call them. They'd have to set an appointment to come to your house to like look around, to then email you a quote like a week later. It's just this really, excuse me, kind of messy system. So for me, being a busy person who might need some help cleaning my house because I don't have time to do it, having to go through all this extra effort to make that happen just adds this. It kind of defeats the purpose, right?
So how did you look when you started your business? How did you see your competition? Did you think it's relevant or is it not relevant, or you did not look at it at all because you are going to do certain areas differently?
Yeah, I mean, you always do a little bit of research on the competition, and back then, my trade, before I started my business, I do search engine optimization. That's kind of my superpower. So I'm always looking at the search results, looking at who's competitive and where the low-hanging fruit is. And this was one of those businesses where people at that time, if they were putting effort into SEO, it was very, very minimal, and they weren't doing it very well. So that leaves this huge opening, right? So when I was looking at the competition, I saw it was really hard to get an appointment. You had to call and they'd come to your house and do all that. So it just took way longer. They weren't doing enough to market, so it was really hard to find them. And just those kind of two little pieces, like if I can make it easy to find me and you can call and book an appointment in 5 minutes, on the website, we say you can do it in 60 seconds, which you totally can. Just go on there, book it, put a credit card down. It just solves a lot of the problems and makes it a way more compelling offer compared to having to jump through all these hoops, right?
So how could you scale this business into 1.5 million? What the things that you did to do that? Do you have certain, let's say, different services or integration of services within this service or within your business, or do you offer just one thing?
So we really just focus on one thing. We only do residential houses. We don't do businesses. We don't do post-construction cleanings or anything like that. We don't do carpet cleaning. We're just, sweeping, mopping, vacuuming. And initially, when we first started, we experimented with all that, right? We had a couple offices we were cleaning, and we would go at like 3 a.m. to try and clean them. And we had some post-construction, like somebody just built a new home, that we would try that. We figured out we're just going to do everything, see what works. And what we found out is we had one strength, which was that kind of white glove, high touch customer service where we're coming into the home, we're making people feel good, we're following up with them and really communicating a lot. Whereas if you're working for a business, they don't care about that. They just want it to be as cheap as possible. So with that kind of higher touch, consumers are willing to pay a lot more to have a cleaning service than a business is. So we kind of identified that and then figured that's where we're going to hang out and stick to. And then from that, the biggest key to growth there is just sales, marketing, and automation, and trying to make sure that we can automate as much as we can. So what I mean by that is, automatic appointment reminders. Credit cards are getting put on hold before we go to a cleaning so that we don't have to have accounts receivable that we're chasing after constantly. We've got messages that we send out. So one of the things that we did through kind of our automation process is I have a meeting with my staff every Wednesday. We bring in all the issues, anything that happened in the last 7 days that we need to fix. We talk about them and we work on trying to figure out how we could do it better. So an example I like to share is we do these things that are called move in, move out cleanings. What that basically means is you're leaving your house or your apartment and everything's empty and the landlord needs you to just kind of go through and get it looking as new as possible. And what we noticed is if we didn't tell people ahead of time that they should leave us a key so they don't have to meet us, because when they're waiting for us in an empty house, if we don't show up there right at like 9 o'clock, then they get mad. So we got to encourage them to leave us a key, and then we got to share these other kind of steps. So the other thing that people would do is they would have their water and power turned off before we came to clean. And then without water and power, we can't run our vacuums, we can't scrub down the shower, which ends up making it really challenging for us. So we made a automation where when they went online, booked a move in, move out cleaning, and they didn't have a couple of these little extras that we thought they would need, or they, just generally booked that type of cleaning, we would send them this big long email with our pro tips for how to have a successful move out cleaning. And it's a little weird thing that we did, but it ended up saving us like 30-40 minutes a week on having to call these people back and deal with these customer service issues when they were upset that this one part of their house wasn't cleaned, or whatever else might come up. So just by kind of having that Wednesday meeting, talking about all the issues and automating the things, we were able to basically get to this size with an internal office staff of 3 people, 4 if you count me, and then now we've got 35 cleaners. So
Yeah, so you mentioned marketing and sales also. So how do you find a new customer for your business? Do you find it, like as you mentioned, you already know about SEO? Do you do Google? Do you do SEO for your business and your website?
Yep.
Or do you go for other sites like ads and these kind of things?
Yeah, so we tried everything when we first started. There's a lot of services that kind of cater to businesses like this, like Thumbtack or Nextdoor. And we tried all of those, and what we found works was just kind of the tried and true search engine optimization is our by far biggest leader. So we focus on our Google Maps optimization, just making sure we're in that 3-pack on the maps. So that's kind of our local SEO element. That was a big focus of mine, and we're really solidly up there and ranked well there. We did some organic SEO as well. So that's content writing, blog posts, just kind of getting backlinks and, basically participating in the community so that you can, we can all raise each other up. That's a big part of it.
That's awesome that you are basically a cleaning business,
Yeah.
but you are actually doing content on your website,
Right.
which is very
Yeah,
helpful for people
Mhm.
also to read about certain things and about certain blog posts that may actually benefit them and do the things themselves sometimes.
Yeah, well, and that's a big thing that a lot of people miss when they're looking at SEO. I talk to a lot of SEO companies, and they kind of have this old idea of I'm just going to build you a bunch of backlinks, and I'm going to pay for them somewhere, and then you're going to rank. But nowadays, Google expects a lot more. They want you to be an authority on the subject. So the way you establish yourself as an authority is you start writing blog posts. And the big part that a lot of people miss is you got to write it and then you got to promote it. And then on top of that, actually participating in your community and the community at large. So doing things like coming on this podcast. There's this weird natural thing that happens where you get more than you give. So you just have to give, that's free information, free content. When COVID-19 happened, for example, we had this huge long blog post that ranked really, really well, just about the things you can do to sanitize your own home, the high touch surfaces you need to clean, how much, what type of chemicals you have around your house. We had a whole blog post on how to clean with alcohol and how long you had to have it on a surface before you wiped it away and all that type of stuff. So it's just a really nice, useful, helpful thing. And that, those types of, doing that type of stuff establishes you as an authority on a subject.
Exactly.
So it's
So
just, yeah.
can you tell us about a time where things did not go right for you, and whether it's in business or with a customer, that you
Yeah.
are providing a service to, and how did you handle that? How did you deal with that, you or your team?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, this type of stuff happens all the time. One of my favorite stories is we had a customer who we were supposed to clean for, and we have this thing that happens where because we book everything online and we're not actually going to somebody's house, 99% of the time we nail the price and the amount of time it's going to take us because we've just done it so much. I think we've done like 40,000 cleanings at this point. But every now and then we miss it. We get a dirty house. So we went over to this house. It was an apartment to clean. The notes for how we get into the house is just that we're going to leave the door open, just let yourself in. So we show up at this apartment, we let ourselves in, and the house is a mess. It's just really bad shape. And you know, there's different levels of cleaning. Like most houses are going to be, you know, you need a little dusting, a little vacuuming, and it'll take us a couple hours. But this was one of those ones where trash was everywhere, like open pizza boxes, just in really bad shape, right? So we try to call the customer because we can help with those situations, but we have to kind of get permission to spend a little bit more money to kind of get it all there because it's going to take us twice as long, right? So we call the customer, leave a voicemail. We can't get a hold of them. We shoot them a text message. And like, okay, we're just going to take care of it. I'm going to pay for the difference and we're just going to get this customer happy. No big deal, right? That's kind of our happiness guarantee. Like we want to take care of people. So we start working on it. We're 2-3 hours into this job. We're just about done. And we get a call from a customer. He says, hey, where are you guys? And we said, we're at your house. We've been there for like 3 hours now. We tried calling you. He says, no, I've been here the whole time. Nobody's here. We walked into the wrong house. We just straight up broke into somebody's house. That was a complete disaster. And we cleaned like the whole thing. And we had no idea who this person is. We don't have a phone number. We basically just have their address. I'm like, well, at this point, what do I do? Like, do I write them a letter and tell them that I broke into their house and cleaned it? So we ended up just kind of going over to the next customer's house. We had the team stay a little bit late and we worked on getting it clean, but we all had a good laugh about it.
Yeah.
So that type of
what
stuff happens.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. So what advice would you personally give to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur starting a business? Like you mentioned earlier, like we don't have to reinvent the wheel and start something completely new because
Yeah.
that will require us a lot of our energy, a lot of our time, a lot of money. So
Yeah.
how should someone
It's a bigger
build a
risk.
business? Yeah, build a business that's
I'd
easy
say,
way. I don't know. So,
yeah, I mean, so people tend to shy away from areas that have a lot of competition. And we tend to look at, we want to start something new, right? But the thing that we forget is, you know, when we're like, oh, if you want to build a Google or a Facebook, you got to do something brand new that nobody's ever done. But people forget that before Google, there was Alta Vista and Yahoo and all these other things. Google was like the third or fourth one. Facebook's the same thing. There was MySpace, there was Friendster. Facebook was like the fifth or sixth one. So don't look for something that nobody's doing. Find something that you can do a little bit better. So in my case, I could do a better job marketing than my customers were because that was my background. And I could do a better job on customer service because, you know, from what I saw from the competition, they weren't doing that. So don't be afraid to go into an area that has a lot of competition. You know, so if you're looking at starting something smaller and local, which I like doing because you can still make really good money if you're not a national, you know, chain. Look for places where there's a lot of people. Like if you see, like home cleaning is a great example. Almost any city, you're going to see like 30, 40 of these companies. And that means that there's 30 or 40 people making money doing it. If there's only like one person, that means there's probably just enough that only one person can make money doing the thing. So, you know, don't shy away from things that there's competition. You know, the only thing that you have to do when you go into a place that has a lot of competition is you have to do it slightly better. And people tend to not realize how little that change is. You know, so if you look at the difference between like, you know, a Ford Fiesta and a really nice BMW, that BMW is maybe only like 5 or 6% better than the Ford. You know, the stereo sounds a little bit better. It's a little bit faster. You know, it's the door close sounds a little bit nicer. Like the materials are just a little bit better, but it adds up to like a $50,000-$60,000 difference when you're buying a car. Just a 5% different, you know. Same thing with a lot of these home services. So like the biggest thing that we do is we'll answer the phone when people call. And a lot of cleaning companies won't do that. So we get the jobs because we're picking up the phone, we're talking to people, we're engaging, we're communicating, except for this one guy's house that we couldn't clean. um, I couldn't get a hold of him, but you know, don't be afraid to get into a space that's busy, that's crowded, because there's a lot of opportunities there. You know, you
There,
just have
there,
to be
there,
a little bit
there,
better.
there is abundance, there is opportunity. You just like you
Hmm.
mentioned, you have to be a little bit better
Hmm.
because eventually people do business with people. So
Right.
it's not just about how much you advertise, or well, it could have in it, but eventually people do business with people they like. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, so what are do you think some of the great resources that helped you personally and in your business along the way to improve things?
Um, to be honest, I found a Facebook community that was really helpful for me. So there was a couple of Facebook communities around house cleaning that were just really great, and that's one of the things I really like about these local businesses. When you're not competing on a national level, oftentimes your indirect competitors, you know, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. You might have somebody in Chicago who's running a very similar type business giving you advice for free because they just like sharing and helping. So participating in the community and being a part of it and just finding like a Facebook group or you know, a forum where there are people kind of doing like-minded things, going to conferences and just getting in front of other people that have the same goals you do can be a really big help. So the biggest thing that I could say is just find your people, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you think there's something important that you would like to say that I have missed asking you about?
No, I think the only other thing is, you know, invest in therapy and invest in coaching. Having a good business coach, having a good therapist, it makes a really big difference. I haven't met one entrepreneur that didn't have something that they had to go to therapy about. There's usually something that's pulling almost everybody that I've met that is driven to be successful has something that happened to them or something that they're kind of fighting against is pulling them to be successful because it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. Um, if we wanted to make money the easy way, we would go get a job at a Fortune 500 company, work your way up to middle management, and you're making, you know, six figures with good health benefits, you know, having a really easy life. This is a lot harder than that, you know. So for people like me who need to have the autonomy of entrepreneurship and the flexibility of money and time, and you know, I have found very few of them that didn't need to just invest a little bit in therapy and a little bit in just a good business coach. There's plenty of organizations out there that do business coaching. In the United States, there's a free group called SCORE that's run by the SBA, Small Business Association, and a lot of countries have that or similar things. So you know, just get in front of some people, talk to other people, and build yourself a support network. That's probably the most
That's
important
amazing.
thing.
So if someone asks you about books, are you a fan of books? Do you read books and do you recommend
Absolutely.
certain books to certain people?
Yeah. There's a ton of books that I really like, and I read all the time. So I always try to give one that people haven't heard of, because everybody's heard of like Good to Great and you know Think and Grow Rich and all those. A book that surprisingly helped me a lot was not about business at all. It's called The Seven Love Languages.
Mm.
Uh, Basically it breaks the book down into, I mean, it's kind of in the framework of a husband and wife trying to get along and realizing that there are things that you do or that happen to certain people that make them feel an intense feeling of love. So for me, it's acts of service. When somebody does something for me, helps me with a project, I feel this intense sense of love. For my fiance, it's spending time. So if we go out to a movie together or I plan something like a picnic, she really enjoys that type of stuff. She feels this intense sense of love. Where that applies to business and what I see a lot of people missing is that's true for everything. And as somebody who employs people, you can find that your employees have this sense of love. They have this sense of, feeling these emotions. And for a lot of business owners who struggle to keep employees or to motivate people, which is a really important part of being a leader, they tend to focus on the wrong thing. Most entrepreneurs I talk to are like, oh, I just need to pay them more. I need to give them more bonuses. But the person that you're giving a bonus to, they might not, that for the 7 love languages, that might be acts of, or gifts is one of the love languages. But theirs could be time, like it is for my fiance. So it would be way more beneficial. You could write them a check for $500, or you could take them for lunch. Lunch is going to be way cheaper, but they're going to get to spend time with you. They're going to feel more connected to you, and they're going to want to stick around longer. So identifying, like kind of learning what these are and identifying what they are. For some people, it might be words of affirmation, just letting them know when they did something good, that they did something good and you appreciate it. Will get them to stick around way more. So learning those things about your employees and using those to help motivate and to help retain them is a huge benefit that I think a lot of business owners miss. So 7 love languages is one of my books that I like to send people to.
It's a great book. Like I mentioned, it's not to motivate people. It's not always just about the money. Sometimes there are different aspects and multiple ways to help people or motivate them to do their best work. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
what would you say one takeaway for the Success Grid Nation to take from this episode?
Well, I'd say, keep an open mind. Make sure you're working on yourself. I think if you want to be successful, um, there's been plenty of times in my life where I felt like I wasn't. And the one thing that I kept consistent on is I had the grit to not give up. So I kind of mentioned earlier, I had like 5 or 6 different businesses I tried before I started just cleaning houses. And it was the one thing that really worked for me. But every time that a business didn't work out, I was just like on to the next one. What's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I can try? So be gritty, don't give up. Make sure you're taking care of yourself too. That's a really, really important piece. So like I said, don't be afraid to invest in a good business coach, in a good therapist. Sometimes just sitting down and talking with somebody or for therapy just helps you kind of identify the reasons why you're doing things, why you're motivated to do stuff. And once you can kind of put a name to those things, whether that's through business coaching or therapy or whatever, it really gives you kind of the superpower to understand yourself and understand why you're doing stuff and to really go tackle things in a different way. And if you're trying to be a good leader and trying to motivate people and, when you're interviewing people as a business owner, trying to get them to come work for your company, you really got to be able to bring people in and to motivate them and to get them to want to stick around. And if you don't understand yourself and your own weaknesses, it becomes impossible to do that. Like people see right through it. And it's a very subtle, weird thing. But, the more we kind of look internally and figure out ourselves and invest in ourselves, it pays dividends.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Ryan, where can people get in touch with you? They want to learn more about you and your company.
Yeah, so the company is Tidy Casa. It's tidycasa.com, tidycasa.com. I've also got a blog. It's my last name. My name's Ryan Knoll. It's knoll.co, knoll.co. So I've got some blogs on there. I got actually a blog on 20 books every entrepreneur should read, so feel free to go check that out. I haven't posted on it too much, but I got some coming down the pipeline. So, and I'll definitely be posting the Success Grid up there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today with me on this episode of the Success Grid podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, Hassan. I really appreciate you inviting me out and getting to spend time and nerd out about this stuff. I love talking about it. So